Welcome to OOD Works, the podcast, a show about unique individuals and the services provided by Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, the state agency that helps individuals with disabilities find a job and be more independent. Here's your host, Kim Jump.
On this episode of OOD Works podcast, I'm pleased to introduce you to Michael Schor, Associate Professor of Instruction at Ohio University, OU, where he teaches finance courses and is the president of the OU chapter of the American Association of University Professors. Michael was a participant with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, OOD, about 15 years ago. Recently, Michael reached out to his former vocational rehabilitation counselor, Melinda Wingard, to share how he's doing. So, Michael, what prompted you to reach out to Melinda?
It was a time of just warm memories. I think when I'd been tapped to become president of the AUP for Ohio University and take office July 1st, it was one of those things very symbolic of having come through this long journey of rehabilitation and a lot of nostalgia. And I think I tried to reach Melinda a couple of years ago, called a number or two, and people couldn't get me in the right direction, but it just worked right this time. And I thought, gee, it would really be nice to share with Melinda what has happened since she worked with me and letting her know that her extra effort helped make the difference for me. I feel it was a strong push forward.
That's so great. So take us back, roughly 15 years ago. What was going on in your life that caused you to connect with the agency?
I had a life-changing experience. It was a surgical accident related to a gallbladder surgery. And the expectation was they would just go in lightly and do those laparoscopic things. It ended up being an open surgery. And ultimately, I was diagnosed with having a neck injury, an injury to the C5, C6. I think there was a physical component of it. There was lots of pain and it was distracting. Also, there was partly from medication, perhaps, the jolt to the system. I really had trouble carrying out work tasks, if you will. I mean, I was very good with people and, I could read, I could do lots of things, but organizing my time, it didn't feel right. And I'd come to Ohio and my wife had come out for business, and it was just a sense I needed the feeling of having some help to find a way to be more productive. But yeah, people would say, oh, he's very smart and articulate. And
right.
Yet to do things that I'd done before was very hard, and tasks that had been maybe a little difficult because they weren't my best skill sets now became incredibly confusing. So it felt like life had just really, that you ever have full control of your life, but the degree to which I could exert over it had changed a great deal. And I really wasn't sure how I could move ahead.
Yeah. So unexpected too, for you to go into surgery and then have all of these lasting challenges that were even affecting your ability to focus and to work.
Yeah, it was very hard. And the physical pain began to diminish, become less frequent, less long lasting. But I'd been on Oxycontin for a year and a half. And frankly, for me, it was a good drug. It is controversial, but I think it should be said if you're well suited toward it and well managed, doctors tell me, oh, you manage this well, just wean yourself off. If you want to take an extra month, go ahead and do it. It was just very okay there. But then had to find some kind of pain relief. And that awful feeling when you could drop a pencil and turn around and then the neck's in spasm, and how are you going to concentrate for a while? It was difficult. And I think for people in constant pain, there's going to be an erosion of what they can do with their mental function. The brain can do so much and you can stretch, but there are points where you just say, oh, this is tiring, and you don't have the energy for it. And then, of course, the psychological component, you think you can't, so it makes it harder to do. And a real feeling of needing to find new ways, but very confusing. And,
I can imagine it was. And yet there was some kind of awareness with you to know that I can endure this and there's help for me.
Yeah, I've been on the other side of the social services table as an elected official, mostly to do with providing adequate budgeting for municipal budgets for social services, but understanding the programs, the leadership. So it was a comfortable, familiar space. I certainly didn't feel any stigma. And I thought of it, oh no, this could be really very good. Find out. I don't remember where my initial contact was. Probably was scrolling around the net and noticing some program of the agency, and it drew me in. But for me, it makes sense to draw on different resources and not to assume that people don't know how to help you or that these things don't exist. Kind of going forward and saying, we need to get in dialogue, need to talk to people, need to find somebody who could be helpful as part of the team for rehabilitation.
Right. For you, there was no stigma. I wish that were the case for everyone.
Yeah, I think, admitting that there's something off could be very challenging. And, it's not for me to judge the psyche of everybody. I'm not qualified to do it. But in general, when you had a major jolting event, when you're at a disadvantage with a disability or you feel one, it could be easy to blame oneself or not want to be judged and the ability to go forward. I was confident enough that if somebody said, we don't want to help you, I could say, well, thank you very much. Have a nice day, and I'll move on. But that's not the case for everybody. And you if you feel that you can navigate through the system and you know how to call a commissioner if you had to say, I don't like something, that's a much different spot than somebody feeling they're just at somebody else's whim, whether they'll be treated well or not, and the self-esteem may be already gone. So I think this is one of the things that it's good to emphasize to people. Be an advocate for yourself. It doesn't mean being combative, but stand up, step forward, make some outreach, shake some hands, and don't be afraid to ask people, what can you provide? And then ask them for more information and get engaged. It's an active process.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's what you did, because from the sounds of it, then really you got connected through just being proactive that way on your own and finding OOD, finding service.
Yeah, nobody sent me and said, we think you need help here. It was I had to make the decision to do it. And then I was so glad I did. And working with Melinda was really a joyful experience. Her attitude, her embrace of my goals and willingness to talk and listen. And I felt very interested in what she had to say. So it was a good connection, really valuable.
Yeah. And so what kinds of supports and services did Melinda help link you with that started to make a difference for you?
I recall it was dealing with both the structural things in the brain, how do we get you going, what do you need, but the physical things as well. So one of the things that helps me most, and I still look at it today, is a chair. I never would have realized, other than putting a pillow behind me or sitting up straight, that it would make a difference to somebody with a neck injury or other injuries to have a chair that's ergonomically designed. And I don't mean just a little twitch. I mean a serious chair.
Right.
So saying, no, you need this so you can work. And then thinking, oh, it does make a difference. It doesn't cure the problem, but it reduces the frequency of the spasms, gives me more confidence. I can work better. So that was something incredible, the physical accommodations. The other part that we worked on was trying to make it's coming back more as I think, about what I did with Melinda at the end. Now I can think more about the beginning. I'd forgotten probably a lot. But as I recall, there was sort of a career inventory, a sense of where would you go? What do you want to do? And kind of revolved around the idea that I should probably, for that time, try to work independently. And I became a pretty cool math tutor. I had quite the following of 12-year-olds, one in particular who could take the square root of 49 million as if he was dividing 8 by 2, and to the delight of librarians at Otterbein, to people who were anticipating going to business school typically and wanted tutoring and prepare for the GMAT or occasionally the GRE, and that somehow structuring a business, it would keep me engaged mentally. I would need to learn more about the use of computers, which back then not everybody knew everything, but I was behind the curve. I didn't have to do as much. Others did the work and was a disadvantage. So to have to learn and then to kind of create a plan. And sometimes it's not just the outcome, the product, but it's the process of going through it, working with a new consultant and trying to figure out where do you want to go from here for the next step and how could I launch myself. So that was really valuable. And Melinda's role was so meaningful to me because she really listened and kind of coached me to thinking ideas without being overbearing. And then that enthusiasm that says, no, I believe in you. You're good. I mean, it was more, like dealing with a law firm or an accounting firm. You're a valued client. You respect them for their abilities, and they respect you as a client. And it was that kind of professionalism that was also uplifting for me. So just the vibe between the two of us meant a lot.
Yeah, sounded like it was a very good fit. Yeah, for you at that time. And so you were working with her, got into tutoring. So were you kind of on the path to becoming a professor at that point?
Well, yeah, maybe I was. I didn't realize it at first. I'd gone into the MBA program at Otterbein, knowing one of my former profs in older days had said, if you ever have some time, it'd be good for you to get an MBA. The bells of the carillon at Otterbein reminded me of the bells of a church near where I had grown up. And I thought, this is a pleasant place. And I couldn't conceive how I would get to OSU downtown every day and take on their business program. And not to put down Fisher in any way, but Otterbein was the right spot for me. It was very nurturing, came from an academic family, both sides, grew up in that environment. And of course, I wasn't going to teach. I smile and I'm reminded of the great Western band leader, Bob Wills, who said, it doesn't pay to say what you're not going to do because you're liable to end up doing that very thing. And it was one night when one of my profs was over for dinner and my wife was smiling because she knew where this was going before I did. And I was commenting on the rigor and the structure and the organization of the Master of Business Administration program at Otterbein. And to which the reply was, you know what you should be doing. And it was just at that moment, I said, I guess she's right. And so, no, it was the last thing I was going to do. I was mayor of a college town. I was accustomed to dealing with, cabinet level officials and the highest people at the highest level of state government and seeing the university from the town side of town gown. And this was, I could be on the other side and thinking, well, that'd be kind of fun, both sides now. So I had no concept, but maybe that was pushing me along.
Wow, that's so funny. I guess I just figured that maybe you had already had your eyes set on that, but you were just more into public service from, like you say, the other vantage point.
Yeah, so it was, seeing the value of social services, understanding the financial consequences, economic consequences of not providing them and the benefit of providing good services, the sense of bureaucracy. So always an interest in it. And for me, Otterbein was a very safe place. And I don't mean unchallenging, but it was safe. I joked I was a daytime student in a nighttime program, so I could be around campus all day. I might have a couple of students for tutoring later on at the beginning. And then they treated me well. I mean, I'd be put on committees and I, have lunch with faculty members. And the president of the university at the time was very gregarious. And, so we'd chat sometimes. One of the top donors and I became friends. Lots of faculty really were kind to me, and we knew each other socially, but intellectually as well. So it was a place really to heal. I didn't have to conform to anything specific except maybe the demands of the classes I was taking, but it was a chance to be back in an environment and a place that was good for me and it would challenge me. So that pushed my intellectual ability further and gave me a chance to feel that I was moving ahead, even if I wasn't moving in the normal places and pathways that I had before. It was safe and it was productive. You
were learning more about the workings of college that helped prepare you then for being a professor at OU.
Yeah. I often look back to things at Otterbein and ways people reacted. And being in a smaller institution, you tend to see things across the whole enterprise, so to speak, more easily if people are open with you, and they were. I think it's very good. And I still go back to Otterbein, strong connections with the library, go back up for theater. And it was a very endearing experience and a lot of that spirit and that caring nature that's so typical of Otterbein with me. And some ways for me, it's a standard. Not that I expect the entire world is going to be as good. It can't. But when I think about how do people treat each other, what do bureaucracies do, what should our expectations be, what does it really mean to be generous in nature, you're generous in spirit, I think, okay, well, Otterbein does that very well. And I was glad that it got into my blood.
Yeah. You completed your MBA then from Otterbein, and then kind of what were the next steps professionally?
Well, I was teaching a little bit, but not on a permanent basis as a faculty member. with the university, and it was a delightful morning. I'll never forget it. The president of Otterbein at that time was married to, and it still is married to a very interesting man who's a journalist, Richard Gilbert, and we were both involved in a faculty learning group on blended and online learning. And I was walking down the steps with him and said, Richard, I got an email today about a position with the Eastern Campus of Ohio University. He turned to me and smiled. He said, Mike, it's a great place. They've got a wonderful dean. He's doing wonderful things. I didn't know at the time that dean had been on his wife's staff when she was provost. So they really had a strong connection. And I went down for an interview for a spot that I guess it had been just a long running attempt to hire somebody that didn't work out right. The fit wasn't right. Eastern's a small place, and it really prides itself on a certain intimacy and familiarity and a warmth. And they were having a rough time finding someone. And I sort of went in and said, I've been sent as a small token of thanks from Otterbein for the two wonderful people who came from OU. Where's my office? I'll get to work. And it was funny. It just sort of felt as if it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And but that was Richard's encouragement. I never stopped.
Oh, that's great. And for folks who don't know, where is the Eastern Campus?
The Eastern Campus is almost at Wheeling. Those last little stretch of Ohio going down 70, so you can sort of see Pennsylvania from there. And I have taught courses that may be covered at multiple campuses, but I've been to all the regionals. But now I'm part of the finance department in the College of Business, so I have an anchor there and an involvement with a group that is very stimulating because we don't have a full department out in the regional campuses. So being part of some of the main campus has been delightful, and it's a small intimate group and very nice. And I love the events, and it's given me another sense of home, which has been really good. Very fond of it.
Mm-hmm. And what aspects of the job do you like the best these days?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I guess I should just don't sound modest, but saying there is a certain prestige about teaching at a university, and certain fields such as finance just have a ring. I mean, people think you really must know all kinds of things.
Oh, it does, though.
So there's an enjoyment there. One of the things I enjoy is being able to notice talent and interest among students who are coming from areas that are more economically disadvantaged and where the connection with opportunities and the assumption of what you can do in life might be different than somebody coming from a prosperous suburban area. So to be able to give encouragement to students who are quite meritorious, but to continue on with education, to advance, knowing I might have made a little bit of difference as a mentor and as a supporter, that's very enjoyable. I like the fact that the position gives me legitimacy and credibility when I'd like to talk to people in organizations, both in and outside of the U.S., talking about projects. People are quite welcoming. So to be able to learn more about a field I like because as an academic, people think, well, we should support him, or he might have some interesting things to discuss with us. So it's a nice outer directed feeling, and just to see the university, and as I do was coming in through my activity to the AUP, I guess I'm applying my old skills and knowledge from childhood and through adulthood in a new environment, and thinking, oh, gee, I really do still have this. It's a sense for me in many ways of that circle closing. I mean, there'll always be things from which to recover, but the sense of, oh, I guess I'm back. It's been a long time before I felt I was back, but this really did it. And that was the point where I said, I've got to find Melinda now. I didn't reach her before. I've got to, because this was pivotal. And the AUP has given me a lot of sense of that. When I hear people say, no, we like your leadership style, we like the way you're diplomatic, we like that. And I realize, though, there are things I yet have to learn about what a chapter should be doing, that I'm fitted to the burden, and I enjoy the people I share it with.
That's so wonderful that you're to that point that, you feel that way. And it sounds like paying it forward is so very important to you, and using a position of leadership for good. Yeah.
I mean, it's again, to sound immodest, I think of the statement from Lyndon Johnson, who has gotten so much more recognition and good press in the last few years, sort of the reputation rehabilitated, and now talking about, the great things he said, such as Howard University, talking about voting rights and moving forward, and his general comment about, if you can't use the presidency for something good, like what he was trying to do with civil rights, what's it for? Well, I mean, I'm on a much, much lower level, but again, if you're given authority, if you're given influence, think about where you can make a difference for someone else, maybe just by setting an example, maybe it's by giving a little encouragement, but don't just sit back and think 10 years later, gee, I really could have contributed if I'd taken the time to engage or contact other people. I will not let that happen. And so I'm available to help, encourage, and want to share ways that can help move people to a stronger, happier life.
As evidenced by you just having it, on your heart to reach back out and that being so important to you. Yeah. Can I ask how it's been for you professionally during the kind of unusual times we've found ourselves in with the pandemic?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think it's good to talk about these things. I had a lot of experience teaching online, and the predominance of my teaching was already online. So the shift for me as an instructor to all classes online and all advising going online and that sort of thing, that wasn't hard from my end of delivering, but there was one really sensitive spot. There were many students in classes who hadn't come in with the intention of being in an all online program. There were some who did, but for those who hadn't taken online classes before, had bad experiences, were fearful, finding their state of worry, panic sometimes, and trying to support them, and in the way that you have to do, not to be coddling and say, oh, don't worry about it. Everybody gets a B plus, at least in this class. If you would have done well, in fact, so don't worry, you failed the test, but I'll give you a high grade. I don't do that. And of course, most people don't. But on the other hand, to say, this is a challenge, but I want to assure you, you can do it. You've just got to make a decision. Will you do it and go through those steps? And let me know if you have some problems. But to be able to make that adjustment, I find now that it's pretty rare that you get the message of, I can't do an online class. I don't want to do an online class. It's not right. It doesn't take people that long, but you've got to be a beacon of light and strength for people while they're doubting. Because if you let them doubt and say, yeah, you're right, you're not going to do well, that's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Do you think the time brought more resilience out of your students then?
Yeah, I think I'll need to look back several years from now and see if I'm judging it fairly. But I sense that people in general they realize you've got to pick up the pace and learn how to use Teams and or Zoom, that they need to be able to do some things a little more in a self-directed way. But once they've done it once or twice, they seem to move on. And I suspect, although there are legitimate concerns, I'm sure, for people about what happens to the people in elementary to middle school level, maybe somewhat in high school, but about the interruption to the education, the change. But in general, it will be a generational or cohort that will tend to be more adaptable. It just came a lot at once, and there is some pain and some setback, and missing a prom or not being able to play with kids for 6 months. Those are serious problems. But in terms of their ability to engage in the business and professional worlds and do things on the outside, people learn and they move. And I think we have more dynamic society and economy, I think we have as a result of it. So long range, I think we've done pretty well as a country, and it's not as bad. There are painful spots as you see people cut out of the job market. Unemployment may be down, but there are a lot of people who are not in the labor force now and coming back in. And it's not simply $300 a week extra on workers' comp. In some cases, in some economies, I wouldn't deny it. But I think there's some structural issues, childcare, health issues. We've still got a ways to go before it evens out. But I think in general we'll be more productive and a more successful society. But I'm eager, as everybody is, to find out.
Well, I like this professor's take on it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, one of our newer initiatives that I just want to take this opportunity to plug is a program that's been in place for 2 years now called Ohio College to Careers, in which we designate a vocational rehabilitation counselor to a public college or university. And Ohio University is one of those. And we have a counselor designated named Hannah. And, it's really geared for making sure that students with disabilities get that support that they need, just like, Mike, you needed at one time in your life to be able to, if they're struggling during COVID or for other reasons, to be able to complete their degree and credentials if that's applicable, and be able to earn those higher wages that come with jobs that require degrees, and really be able to meet the demands of tomorrow's labor market. So certainly want to just encourage anyone who's listening that maybe knows of a college student with a disability to keep in mind opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities and that Ohio College to Careers program.
I was impressed as a result of your message to me. I've seen a brief video of Hannah talking about the university and things that I didn't know about her office, those particular services there. I mean, I always include a syllabus statement of if you might need an accommodation, but didn't realize how rich and how deep the support was. So I will just pass along a hint that if you happen to pass along my contact information to Hannah, tell her I would be thrilled, and maybe can collaborate a little bit. Right. Again, it's just encouraging people to take that step. A faculty member just doesn't necessarily know it's there, and you don't always want to leave yourself open to long, interminable kind of involvements in things. But on the other hand, you don't want to just send somebody off without knowing what it is you really have for some options or answer a question. Right. So to be able to make the connections and infuse a little more discussion, I think is really good. So this is a nice feeling for me to see that.
Well, good. Well, I'll definitely make sure the two of you get connected that way, and maybe even you'll be able to meet in person.
Oh yes. All kinds of miraculous things will happen, which will be fun. But,
right.
I think this is really good, and for me it underscores the point that it's often creating a culture of sensitivity and support. No one of us needs to be the expert or substitute for people who are working in the field and know, but we can know what they do. We can know where a good contact point is. We can know maybe some things, perhaps just anecdotally, but can give somebody that example that things can get better, things are out there, and it's okay to say, this isn't quite working, what else can be done, or whom else should I see? And I'm a very big believer in promoting awareness and support. So I feel good. And this is delightful. Delightful feeling.
Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to, Mike, as kind of life goes back to normal? Or the new normal, maybe I should say.
I'm looking forward to being just around the physical presence of a college environment, not just at OU, but other schools I have connections. I'm involved with the Institute of Management Accountants and an officer of the Philadelphia chapter. And there are lots of schools where I connect. And, for example, Drexel, from which a team came, well, it could be in a cyber competition at OU this spring in the OUE Shark Challenge. And just being able to go and wander to an office and meet a few people and talk, and that kind of fun exchange that universities are particularly good at providing, to sit in my office at Eastern and then get up and walk the halls and stop to see friends and just the chat, that I look forward to as well. So it'd be nice to be in person and just to feel the vibe, feel the comfort, the sweetness of those discussions. And on the other hand, I'm going to be a lot more productive because I'm much more of a warrior through Teams and Zoom, and I, feel a greater productivity. And so I think part of it is going back to things one has missed and using them, but not losing the insights we have from the pandemic of how to get more done, reach a little further, be more productive, and maybe start to eliminate some of the drudgery and have more time for things that are fun and purposeful, and we hope do good things.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, what would your advice be to someone considering reaching out like you did to OOD?
Well, certainly I would encourage people go ahead. Now, it's been a long time since I've been directly involved, so I can't say how well the portals work and who's where, except that I know Melinda is there, and that's a good sign. But I think I can give the general answer of saying, don't sit back and wait for years to go by and then think, I maybe could have done better if I bothered to make contact. So I would say make the contact, find out early without overburdening yourself what the range of possibilities are, and get into a good discussion with whoever the counselor person in intake about different paths you might take. So if something isn't quite right or doesn't make sense, you have the ability to open up some new possibilities. I think the important part is that there are lots of things that one hasn't yet imagined that are potential. And until one starts to have those good discussions with people who are competent and caring, you miss a lot of possibilities. So don't be shy and don't be afraid to say, can we regroup? Can we analyze? It should be a safe space for that. And it certainly was for me.
Oh, and it's so neat to see how those possibilities blossom for you.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, it's great. It's a nice connection. And I think people all have special parts of their past and things in which they're interested in that could be aborted or blocked by a disability or change in circumstances, whatever kinds of things people are going through, and not to lose valuable parts of themselves and to have that full richness in life by removing barriers. Sometimes it's doing new things, other times it's doing old things again. An individual journey, obviously, for everybody. But yeah, it's nice to see the healing.
A transcript of today's episode is available at ood.ohio.gov/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. We're on social media at Ohio OOD. Do you have a disability? Do you want a job? We can help. oodworks.com.